Welcome to our July 31st meeting of the Brentwood Rotary Club. I am your host and honored past president, and I am thankful that President Keeley asked me to host our meeting today. He's on a much-needed vacation with his family, and I am honored to get to step in for him. Our invocation today is going to be led by Larry Faust, and our pledge and four-way test by Alan Treadway. Larry, the floor is yours.
I'm a Rotary. Now listen to the fire chief.
I don't see Larry. I don't see him on here.
Well, okay then. So I am going to switch gears and ask Tish Tishman to lead us in our invocation.
Oh boy, talk about being unprepared.
I understand, but hey, you're a team player and I appreciate it.
No problem. Well, let's see. On this beautiful day and summer day in Nashville, as we're gathered together with other fellow Rotarians, I'm very grateful for the fact that friendship is part of this deal, and I wish everybody a very happy and healthy day today. Make the most of it, think positive, and be grateful.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Tish. You did a great job on the spur of the moment. Good girl. Alan Treadway, how about the pledge and the 408 test?
Yeah. You would join me, if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, liberty.
for all. Now, if you join me in the four-way test, first,
is it the truth?
is it the truth? Second,
Fair to hope.
concern. Third,
Will it
and fourth.
be beneficial?
That's it.
We certainly hope
Thank you,
so.
Alan.
Mhm.
About fifth, Alan.
We certainly hope
Yeah.
so.
Well, perfect. All right, Miss Covington, do we have any guests and visiting Rotarians?
Well, I can't see any on here. So please speak up if you've got a guest, like, you know, out of camera range, hiding under your desk or something. But I don't see.
My guest from last week is supposed to pop on here. He may pop in here a little bit late, Jeff Lowe, just in case. So keep an eye out for him.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan. Anybody else? Back to you, Sarah.
Well, perfect. All right, my friends. Mr. Wheelwright, I was hoping that you would be able to give us an update on how you're doing. We've missed seeing your smiling face.
I am doing fine. I'm undergoing another chemo treatment, and it seems to be working. And can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
and I'm doing it probably once a month now because it's taking a toll on my body. I don't recover as fast, so it takes me longer to recover. And everything is going great. I mean, all things considered, I am doing well.
Well,
I like
good.
your flag.
Thank you.
Right.
We like.
Great flag.
Mhm.
Thank you, Roger, for updating us, because we've all been keeping you in our thoughts and prayers, and it's good to see your smiling face.
I appreciate that. Mhm.
I'm going to now open up the floor to Happy Bucks. Who's happy?
Sarah, I'm happy. Thank goodness that baseball and hockey have started. I'm particularly hopeful about the Preds, so I'm happy about that.
So is Mayor Little.
Yes, I'm happy. Can you hear me?
We can.
You're always
Okay. The SEC has revised the football schedule, and there are no non-conference games. Everybody will play 10 conference games. So they're going to have to add 2 additional SEC opponents. Tennessee has added Ole Miss in Knoxville. Lane Kiffin returns to Knoxville, Tennessee. There you go.
There's no fans allowed, so he's probably
May not
safe this
be.
round.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Who else is happy?
I'm happy. I have a new grandbaby. Her name is Rosemary Reed Farrell. She's 8 weeks old and she's beautiful.
Oh, yay.
And we call her Reed. We call her Reed.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you.
Aw.
I might have put some pictures on Facebook.
I
Who
think I
else is
saw
happy?
some.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? It's announcement time. Thank you, everyone. Please remember to get in our whole sponsorships. We are down to the last few weeks before our golf tournament on September 21st. And remember that the golf committee is asking that all members try to get a sponsorship of at least $500 or more. So if you could help with those whole sponsors, it would be greatly appreciated. Wanted to update the club about some things that happened this past week. On Monday night, the Brentwood City Commission voted to approve our partnership agreement that's between our Rotary Club and the Brentwood Charitable Foundation in the city. And this is to accept funds for the building of the inclusion playground in Brentwood. For those of you that don't know what an inclusion playground is, I've had a lot of conversation about that this week. I want to let you guys know it's a playground where kids of all ages and all disabilities can play together. At an inclusion playground, there's something from everybody. For able-bodied children, wheelchair-bound children, even children with sensory issues. So it's a way that all kids get to play and have those experiences that are so important. Also, your Rotary Club board has voted to form a committee for this project made up of our Rotarians, Brentwood Morning Club Rotarians, as well as members from the community and other organizations like the Full Circle program at Brentwood YMCA. If you know of anybody that would like to serve who's Rotarian or not a Rotarian, please let me know. We'd love to reach out to them. I've gotten a lot of good suggestions from some of our previous speakers. So Jennifer Bourne and I are going to be reaching out to them as well. So just wanted to let everybody know what's going on. I ask that you please remember Roger Wheelwright. So glad he's with us today. And also Dottie and Robert Fiddler and John Stokes as they're continuing to deal with health issues. With that, I am going to turn the floor over to our illustrious Chief Jeff Hughes to introduce our speaker today. Chief?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to see a bunch of familiar faces here as I scroll through my iPad. On a serious note, before I revert to the real reason I'm joining you today, I want to thank all of you who reached out to us over the last month with the passing of Officer Destin Legeza. I received a lot of messages, a lot of phone calls, a lot of cards. A lot of folks came by visitation. I haven't had an opportunity to publicly thank those members of Rotary for all of your compassion and well wishes during this really, really difficult time for the police department. I have been in communication with Larry Kane and Keeley Hall, and I know there's some conversation about a donation from the Rotary Foundation for his widow, Heather Legeza. And I just want to express how appreciative I am to the whole Rotary family. So thank you. Now, with that, I was contacted by Jennifer Bourne yesterday by email, and I was really, really honored that she reached out to me to share this introduction with one of my really good friends, Brian Goss, who I've come to know and respect and admire, you know, his type of leadership. And I appreciate the opportunity to have this opportunity to introduce him. Today, I'm sure he's got a fabulous message for us about all of the wonderful things that the fire department does, and everything that the benefit that they bring to the city of Brentwood, and the value that they provide to the citizens of Brentwood. And I'm sure he's going to talk about the new fire station, Fire Station 5, that's going to be built down on I think it's the east side of the city. You know, it's really needed and something that we're all supportive of. It's just it's going to be a good, I'm sure, 30 minutes of valuable time for all of us to really share and learn about the wonderful Brentwood Fire Department that we have here in Brentwood. So if you're like me, I know you're sitting on the edge of your seat waiting to hear this inspirational presentation. So without further ado, my friend Brian Goss.
I got nothing. Actually, I do. It's coming down the road a little bit. So thank you, Jeff, I think. Always a pleasure. Good talking to everybody. Again, I'd hope that we'd be doing this in person by now, but as we have through the last several months, will adapt. So I'm going to switch screens here. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's been 3 years since I talked to everybody. And at that time, I presented the, excuse me, initial research that we were doing to look into an additional fire station. And I know Kirk has told me when they opened Station 4 on Sunset Road back in 2002, they felt that would be the last new fire station they would need. But as we've experienced growth over the last almost 20 years now, data has shown us that we need to add additional resources in that area. So I'm going to focus a little bit today on the need for that, why that's necessary, and the process that we've gone through to get there. If we have time, talk a little bit about our change in operations during COVID-19, and also a little bit about our upcoming strategic planning process. So some of you have seen this before. I know some new folks. This is a little bit of our history. Oops. As I go through here, one thing that's interesting is the numbers you'll see at the end of each of these eras in parentheses is actually the population of the city when these events took place. So in 1954, the Thompson Lane Fire Department was the first organized fire department that began serving our area. They were also covering much of Davidson and Williamson counties, the north part, and use prescribed through door-to-door solicitation. I know Ray Little has told me he remembers when they used to have to sign up for fire protection. I don't know if any of you remember that or not. Surprising to me is there are actually still some places in Tennessee that operate this way. There are still subscription fire departments, mostly out toward West Tennessee between here and Memphis. And at that time, there were 978 residents in the city. In 1961, the Brentwood Chamber of Commerce contracted for more widespread fire protection. And that was about the time that Metro went with the Nashville government. So the Metro Nashville Fire Department expanded to cover all of Davidson County. So that freed up the Thompson Lane, what was then the Thompson Lane Fire Department, to move and focus on Williamson County primarily. So in 1965, they built a station on Pewitt Drive and changed its name to BFD Incorporated. It was actually a privately owned incorporated fire department at that time, and again, subscription based. We're going to see a picture of that and a couple of unique things about that photo when we look at it. And then in 1969, Brentwood incorporated as a city with just over 3,000 residents. And then the municipal department was formed on September 1st of 1986, when the population was approximately 15,000. So you can see we have growing rapidly isn't something new. It's something that we've been experiencing for a long time. So this is our station, or their station on Pewitt Drive when they first opened. And if you'll notice, it says under the Brentwood Fire Department sign, it says police, and also on the front of the building. The department then operated kind of as both a fire and security agency, and they would do door-to-door inspections at night, make sure buildings were locked, those kind of things. I don't know why they felt a more organized police department was ever needed. It seemed to do the job at the time, but anyway, we are where we are. So that's kind of our roots. And now the first fire station that was built when they formed the municipal department was Station 2 on Wilson Pike. That was built in 1986 and is currently our oldest fire station. It's still in service, so most of you know where it is, near the Recycle Center up from Ravenwood High School. And then just a year later, in 1987, this building was opened. And we opened this facility to protect the northern part of our district and Maryland Farms. And then in 1992, the facility on General George Patton, down connected to our service center, was staffed. And then in 2002, as we expanded further into the eastern part of our district, Station 4 at the Safety Center East near Sunset and Concord Road. So where are we going now? We're looking at Station 5. That's located near the intersection, and we'll go in a little bit more detail on this, of Ragsdale and Splitlog. Currently a 2.2 acre lot with a residential house on it. Can't see much from this picture, I understand, but it's pretty well screened from the road. Depending on the economy and how quickly things move forward, we're looking at a probable move-in date sometime in 2023. I see our mayor on there. Hey, Ray.
Hey, Brian.
So I wanted to take a look at this photo for a minute. For years, this is the way, ever since the Station 4 was opened in 2002, this is how our calls were dispatched and how our districts were organized. Station 1 there in the green is here in Maryland Farms. And if you look, there's little red firehouses kind of give you an indication of where our fire stations sit. Can you see my cursor on here? If it's,
yes.
Okay, I'll use that as a pointer then. So that covers this area up in Maryland Farms, and then Station 2, which is center of the city, that's on Wilson Pike. Wilson Pike covered this tan area. And then Station 3 in the Cool Springs, General George Patton area covers in the blue, and then Station 4 out on the east side of the district is here in pink. For years, the way they were dispatched is based upon these districts. So if you lived up in this area here and you had some sort of emergency, you would get dispatched Station 4 because CAD, our computer-aided dispatch system, recognized that address as being in your district, and so you would respond to that location. And that's the way it's been all over the nation forever. And that was based upon simulated drive times and road miles, which engine company, which station could get to your home the quickest from where they were located. What has changed is that we go with every one of our apparatus is now equipped with a GPS system that the CAD recognizes. So when you get a call, or when you call 911 and they enter your address in our CAD system, it doesn't go in and look at the address and assign it to a district anymore. It looks to where the closest engine is and it grabs that apparatus and sends them to that call. So for instance, if you were, say, Station 2, we have fuel pumps out at the Safety Center East. If Station 2 or engine 2 was on its way back to the station, maybe in this area, near Crockett Road, and a call came in up here. Normally engine 4 would have been dispatched, but CAD will recognize that engine 2 is closer and will grab that engine and send it that call. So that has caused a dramatic reduction in our response times. It has dramatically improved them. Most of our officers were pretty good before of listening to the radio, and if they heard a call and they knew they were closer, they jumped the call and notified dispatch that they were taking it. But this actually takes that and through a scientific formula and through GPS detection, enables them to be dispatched directly and get the closest unit there the fastest. So we still utilize the districts a little bit, mostly for data collection, but as far as for response, it's all closest unit dispatch now. That little red star that just popped up down there, that's the location we're looking at for our new fire station. And I'm gonna go into a little bit of detail on how we got to that place. When you do your modeling, your response time modeling, it shows that this engine will be able to respond to the highlighted area there on the map the fastest from the proposed station site. As you can see, that takes a big chunk from the south part of District 4 and a big chunk from the southern part of District 2, and provides a closer response unit for that. You'll also see in this area that there's a lot of open space. This is an older map. Some of this open space has already filled in. And in forecasting, we know that the buildable areas out here are the most dense areas in the city, and that's the area that will probably be built upon the most going forward. So those are all things that we took into consideration in determining where this station needed to reside. Two things we look at when we look at whether or not additional resources are needed is distribution and concentration. Distribution is just basically what it sounds like. It's where they're at, where the apparatus are, where the stations are. And that's also what your insurance services organization looks like when they come in to rate the city for property insurance. The other thing we look at is concentration, and that is not just where they're located, but how our units are spaced out and how fast we can get what we call an effective response force on the scene. And what that means is when you call, whether it's a car accident, a heart attack, or a structure fire, how fast and how quickly can we comprise an entire team that can handle that type of situation on that site. It also looks at the number of times at which a unit is required to cover for other deployed resources. Backing up to this map here, if engine 4 is dispatched on a call up in the northern part of their district, and they get a call over here near the Nolensville Road area, previously engine 2 from Wilson Pike would have to go all the way over to cover. But with engine 5 now, it's obviously a lot closer, and it'll reduce that response time. So not only do we look at where they're located, but we look at how often these other engines are committed to calls when a second call comes in their district, and what we need to do to reduce the response time for those secondary calls. So there is actually some science behind it. So if you look at our history, our response history, obviously the most significant growth has occurred in that southeast quadrant near the Wilson Pike, Split Log, and Ragsdale corridor. And if anybody has any questions during this, please shout out. Engine 4 on Sunset Road has experienced a 25% increase in call volume in the last 10 years. If you go back 3 more years, it's closer to about 45%. So that engine company out there is becoming busier and busier as traffic increases, as the population density increases with more subdivisions and homes being built out there. Wilson, and that's not even counting actually the new school that went out on Split Log Road. Engine 2 on Wilson Pike has experienced a 43% increase in call volume in that same 10-year period. So in looking at this Station 5, again, not only are we looking at improving response times to that area, but we're also looking at providing relief to those 2 districts who are experiencing a dramatic increase in call volume. And if you look at the district we created for Station 5, we've seen a 57% increase in call volume there just in the last 5 years. So again, I always tell people we are in the people business, and the more people that you have, the more the need you have as far as draw down on your resources. So are we meeting our response time goals? Our goal for total response time, which we call TRT, and that's from the time you pick up the phone to call 911 until we have an apparatus at your front door, is to be there 6 minutes and 30 seconds, 90% of the time. We don't use averages in the fire service anymore. Average to me is a failing grade. So we look at what we're doing 90% of the time. That's how our accrediting agency measures response time, and so that's how we look at it. Turnout time in the proposed District 5, that highlighted area I showed you, is currently about 10 minutes and 28 seconds, 90% of the time. So you can see that's significantly above our response time goal. And that's what we look to address by adding an additional resource down there. So it's not just about the number of calls that exist, but it's about getting you the help as quickly as possible. So why is response time important? Obviously, high customer expectations. I think our Brentwood residents have high expectations of their services across the board, not just fire and rescue. And it is our job, it's our responsibility to respond to those expectations. We look at science and the fire growth curve, and we know that in the early stages of a fire, when that fire first starts, it's going to double in size as far as the amount of BTUs or British thermal units that it's putting out and the amount of material it's consuming every 30 seconds. So if you're at 2,000 BTUs after 30 seconds, it's going to go to 4, 8, 60, and that fire is going to grow extremely rapidly. So the faster we can get water on the fire, the more property that we're able to save. Probably the biggest thing for us at this point is sudden cardiac arrest survivability. Sorry about that. There they go. Residential fire alarm. Since 2012, we have responded to over 100 cardiac arrest calls in the city, and we have documented 36 lives saved. What we call a cardiac arrest call is no breathing, no pulse. So it's not just somebody who's extremely ill, it's actually absence of a heart rate and respirations. Out of those 36 lives saved, 33 of those 36 were within 2 miles of a fire station, and the remaining patients were within 2.5 miles. So the average distance of a survivor from a fire station in this study since 2012 was 1.4 miles. So you can see that speed and location definitely matters when it comes to survivability of your loved ones. I'm very proud of these numbers. The national average for a cardiac save is about 10%, and we are closer to 36 to 40%. And I credit what I call the three-legged stool to that. We have a very informed and educated citizenry who often initiates CPR before we get there. We have a trained paramedic on every engine with the ability to deliver advanced care, airways. We're able to do in a fire engine what 10 years ago you could only get done in an ER. So we are well equipped and well trained, and we now have early defibrillation with the defibrillators that are positioned throughout the city, as well as on our apparatus, and that has been key to maintaining those positive numbers. So I'm very proud of those. So what we do when we determine a station location is we do modeling, and our GIS department helps us with this tremendously. So we look at where we're meeting our response time goals on a consistent basis, where we're in danger of not meeting them, and when we're just plain deficient in those goals. So as you can see with our existing Station 2 here and Station 4 here, we had a big hole in this area that's due partially to distance, partially to connectivity and those kind of things, or lack of connectivity, where we were not meeting the customer's expectations. And in this process, basically what we do is we go through with our GIS folks and we start planting stations in different areas and saying, where can we most dramatically improve this picture? Where are our ideal spots at? So through a process of doing that, this is the drive time map with Station 5 at the corner of Splitlog and Ragsdale that we came up with. And if you look, I'm going to go back, toggle back to that last map. These are the city limits here. And there are many parts in the southern part of our city limits and within our city limits that we were not reaching our goals, and an even larger area that we were in jeopardy of not reaching them. And with a station there, that area has turned dramatically green, even out into the urban growth area or into the county. So we were pleased with this. A lot of this yellow spot in the middle of the map you see here, again, it's an issue of connectivity, which one way in, one way out. which makes it a little difficult. And also, it's just a lot of that isn't built upon yet. So we'll continue to model that as we go forward. So based on this modeling, our ideal location was along this green corridor. That's along Split Log Road, in front of Terramore, and then up there to the Ragsdale intersection. And using that modeling, then we went to start looking for property, and the city was not going to condemn property for a fire station. We wanted to be sensitive and mindful to the residents that were in the area. So that was obviously a consideration. And through this property and the secondary property we were looking at, we've involved the citizens in that decision-making process. And then we had to find a willing seller. And originally we had looked at this property up here, even though it was just slightly north and east of the area that we were looking at. It became available through a developer. Problem is that was part of the green space for Terramore, and it was not ideal from a building perspective. It's pretty rough land in there. And also some neighbors expressed concern, existing neighbors in Terramore. So City Commission decided that was not a viable option. So we went in search of again. And this owner of this property here in the red box where we're going to be moving toward actually came to the city and said that he was looking to sell. And so that made the decision pretty easy. Negotiated a price and then bought that property early last year. Slightly off of the corridor here, but given the residential growth in this area and privately owned property that isn't currently for sale, we're very pleased with the piece of property that we got and for the effectiveness that our modeling showed it will have in that area. Just a little bit closer picture of what that site looks like. Again, it's about 2.2 acres. Tuscany is here across the street, and then Sonoma subdivision is in here behind us. So what type of station do we envision? What is it going to look like? What are we thinking that will go in there? Well, one of the things that we were limited with was whatever leftover funds were available after they built the police station. So the architect came in and gave us an idea for what we could afford after we spent all the money on the police department. And this, unfortunately, is what we were letting on. I'm kidding. This is actually, though, that is a previous Brentwood Fire Station, believe it or not. We opened the first station in Wilson Pike, like I said, in 1986. And while this facility here at City Hall in Maryland Way was being built, we moved a fire crew and an engine over near Town Center Way and Pewitt Drive, and they ran out of that fire station for a year. And I see Ray nodding. I think he remembers that. When we were doing that, they had a plastic elevated tank out front with a hose running in it, and that was their running water. And it was something, I'll tell you that. Nothing I've ever experienced. But so that's where Brentwood got their start. But no, in reality, the concept for Station 5 is a neighborhood fire station. We're looking at just putting a single company there at this point, maximum of 4 people on duty on a given day. Most likely a 2-story structure to reduce the footprint given the size of the lot and the required setbacks, and also to make it aesthetically fit into the surrounding residential area a little bit better. 2 bays to allow for storage or potential expansion. We have reserve apparatus and we need a place to store those inside. Also, who knows what's coming down the road, maybe as population density increases. Currently, we have 3 out of our 4 fire stations that have an ambulance housed in it from Williamson County EMS. We want to make sure that we have the capacity at this facility to move one in there should they decide to do that down the road. Nothing massive, 6,000 to 7,000 square feet. And in talks with potential architects, we've put an emphasis on providing amenities to serve the community members along that multi-use trail out there, because right now there are no city parks in close proximity to that, no public restrooms. So we'd like to create a facility where they had that option of coming in, using the restroom, getting out of the heat for a few minutes, getting a drink of water, and that kind of thing. Make it a community-focused fire station for our residents. This is in no way an elevation of what we're planning. This is just an example of what we may be looking at, something that exists out there that is pleasing to the eye and also functional for our crews to use. I went through Sonoma and Tuscany and took about 12 or 15 photographs of various homes. And the homes in there are very similar to one another in their architectural appearance and their colors. And that's what we're going to present to the architect and say, it needs to fit in with this paradigm, so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb in this neighborhood. So we're going to be sensitive to that. And we're going to certainly make sure that we create a facility that the community will not only accept, but certainly be proud of and be able to use. Just going to touch on a couple other topics. I don't want to move forward until I see if there are any questions about the fire station or the planning process at this point. Okay, we'll have some time at the end too if anybody has any questions. One of the questions I get a lot is in regards to how COVID-19 has affected our responses. It's been a time when we've been very proactive, very reactive rather than proactive. I pride myself, I pride our organization in being very proactive in how we approach different things. COVID, I'll tell you, has forced us to be reactive in our response. As numbers change, as CDC recommendations change, we have worked very closely with Williamson EMS throughout this entire process. One of the first things we did back in early March was to meet with our senior staff to develop a matrix to address potential drawdown of personnel. What happens if our personnel start becoming infected? Unlike most city departments, we can lose an entire fire station very quickly because our folks live together 48 hours at a time. Very hard to maintain social distancing and mask for 48 hours at a time within a fire station. So we had to create a matrix. Right now we run 20 people on duty per day. What is it going to look like if we lose 2 and we're down to 18, if we lose 4 and we're down to 16? And we did that all the way down to 10 individuals. Right now we work 48 96-hour shifts, which means our personnel are here for 48 hours at a time, 2 straight days, then they're off for 4 days. If we have a dramatic drawdown of personnel here in the second wave, we may transition to a 48 shift if we get down to less than 10 people on duty per day. So there are all sorts of different possibilities, and that had to be developed very early. Protocol changes with Williamson.
Bob Surfy.
Yeah. Somebody have a question? Okay. We operate under the medical protocols of Williamson EMS. Those are very organic and ongoing, as you can imagine. We adjusted our responses so that when we get to a medical call, like I said, 3 out of our 4 fire stations have an EMS unit, an ambulance running out of there. So we often respond together. Where we would normally all go in together now, we actually stage on the street and send the paramedic from the ambulance. And they're going to get exposed anyway. They're the ones doing the transport. So there's no sense in increasing the amount of exposure. Now, if we get to a call and the ambulance is delayed, or if that person is reported to be under some type of distress, then we will gown down if we believe that COVID is involved, and that's through a series of questions that our dispatchers ask. We will gown up, we will put hand protection, respiratory protection on, and we will go in and help that patient. It's not going to slow down the care that patient receives. One of the things we did early on was relocate some of those ambulances out of our facilities to help reduce the exposure between our personnel. So these things have been ever changing and ongoing as we've gone through. We're constantly monitoring. I spend more time in a week reading about CDC recommendations and different statistics than I ever imagined I would. But that's just part of it, and keeping updated on what the new information is, and then working with Williamson EMS to adjust our responses accordingly. But really, from a practical perspective, we were prepared. Our folks they've been indoctrinated from day one about the importance of isolating themselves. We call it BSI, or body substance isolation. It's utilization of appropriate PPE for the threats that they may be facing. So this was just kind of upping that one level for us. Hasn't really impacted our responses, and we have been extremely fortunate as an organization that from the time that this whole thing came to light until the first week of July, we had no cases within the fire department. Right now we're dealing with 3 cases and making adjustments accordingly. But We're just doing the best we can to prepare the best we can for what may be the next wave. And the final thing I have that we're focused on this year is our 2020 to 2025 strategic plan. We have conducted a formal 5-year strategic planning process every 5 years since 2010. This is something we did in preparation for our international accreditation that we received. But it's also our primary planning guide. It's what I use when we present a budget. It's what I use when we start prioritizing our non-routine work goals year after year and the things that we're going to focus on. What makes our strategic planning process a little unique is that it's service focused and community driven. In other words, you, the community, help us establish our priorities within our plan. And the first time we went through this, it was really surprising to me because I assumed I knew what was important to our citizens. When we went through a series of questionnaires, and many of you who were in Rotary for a while may remember we did this in 2000, I think we did it in 2010 and again 15, is that my presentation for Rotary actually involved you all in helping complete that questionnaire and set the foundation for our process. We were going to do that again today because we're getting ready to start that process in September, but it's very hard to do virtually. So you may be getting an email with a questionnaire, with a survey, and I ask if you do receive that to please fill it out because it's extremely important to us. And we've utilized that again. And like I said, it's our primary planning document through the 5 years of the plan and then in preparation for the next 5-year series. So that's kind of what we're focusing on this year. We're trying to react and at the same time go back to our stance being proactive as we begin some of our short-term planning, even though none of us knows quite what to expect. So that's really all I had for today. I'd be glad to answer any questions or provide any more clarification if anybody has any.
Well, Brian, I'm going to actually turn it over to Ray for just a minute, and then we're going to bring everybody back for questions. Okay. So if everybody will use this time to also put your questions into chat, I will read them as soon as Mayor Little is finished. Mayor?
All right. It's nice to be with everybody today. Every Friday since the 1st of March, the Greater Nashville Regional Council has had a briefing close to the time for Rotary. So it's the last Rotary meeting I got to be a part of was when Senator Johnson spoke. But I'm enjoying today. But also got this urgent text from Chief Hughes this morning that Chief Goss was going to propose a 7-bay, 3-story fire station on Split Log. And I thought maybe I better join and just find out what we needed to be budgeting for. No, I'm just teasing. I really wanted to use this time to commend Chief Goss and his professionalism, and Chief Hughes and his professionalism, and also another member of the club, our Assistant City Manager, Jay Evans. These individuals that you're in Rotary with are the creme de la creme of their calling, both organizationally and known across the state and even the nation for their excellence. And our departments are known for their excellence, both the fire and rescue and the police. So, and as usual, Chief Goss's presentation was excellent, and we look forward to having this new fire station there on Split Log in that area of Brentwood that's growing so rapidly. So thank you all, and thank you, Chief Goss, for a great program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Little, or Mayor Ray, whatever. Brian, we do have a question. Can Brentwood 911 pick up the GPS of the cell phones when they're called in?
Yeah, actually, the police department oversees dispatch, so I'm going to give as informed answer as I can. We have what's called Enhanced 911 that we use, and through new technology, their goal is to be able to narrow the GPS location of cell phones down to 36 inches. So within 3 feet of your location when they make the call, and the same with text to 911, which is something that's fairly new that you were never able to do before. Right now, they use triangulation with the towers, and maybe Jay or Chief Hughes can let me know if we have fully implemented Enhanced 911 for cell phone use or where we are with that.
Chief, you're on.
Am I live?
You are.
You're live.
Okay. I know we continue to work on that, especially as it relates to NG 911. And Kathleen could speak to it better than I could, but she's obviously not with us. She's the supervisor over communications, but I would just say it's an ongoing process.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm typing one. Do you want me to read it, or do you want me to?
Sure. Go ahead and read it, Jeff. For you, go
Well,
ahead.
Given his extensive experience with sleeping while on duty, I was curious what kind of mattress he recommends.
He's a Certifan.
Yeah.
You're a Certifan or a SIP? No, seriously, Brian, I just wanted people to know that I didn't, leave the meeting. I actually sat through it and listened. But I do think, I think people would be surprised. I think Rotarians in particular would be surprised to know how many overdose calls we respond to. We carry Narcan. I know y'all carry Narcan. I don't have any numbers readily handy, but you may, off the top of your head, know, or do you know how many times we have used Narcan to resuscitate overdose patients on calls we respond to?
Well, that question has come up before, and it's hard to narrow because Narcan is also a cardiac drug that we administer for cardiac arrest. So we don't tag it in our reports whether it was utilized for a drug overdose or for a cardiac event. So in order to get those numbers, we actually have to go into the narrative of the report, which is a manual process. We have not noticed a dramatic increase in drug overdoses. I was talking to the fire chief over in Murfreesboro this week at our conference. They, along with us, when COVID first hit, experienced about a 30% drop in total call volume. No, as goes another one out. Nobody was calling 911. No one was going to the hospital. As you know, they've warned about seeking delayed treatment with cardiac events. We have people who have experienced strokes and cardiac arrests that don't go to the hospital because they're afraid of getting exposed to the virus. And so what they're finding now is that the acuity or the I don't know what word I'm looking for. I always use acuity, but those, by the time they do seek medical advice, they're actually in worse condition than they would have been otherwise. So we noticed an overall drop initially. As far as utilization of Narcan, we haven't noticed a dramatic increase. And what percentage of that is drug versus cardiac? I'd have to research that.
Hey, Brian, real quick.
Yeah.
We're coming up on time, but when you guys go to replace an apparatus, unlike that first fire trailer that we had, which didn't cost very much, an apparatus costs us between $600,000 and $1 million if you're getting a tower or something like that. So describe real quickly, how do you go about not having a big impact on the city commission and the budget in 1 year to replace a big piece of equipment?
We are extremely fortunate in Brentwood, and this goes back to the Mike Walker days. Like I said, I had a meeting in Gatlinburg this week and talked to numerous chiefs, and we have apparatus vendors who come in to our meetings as well. And lease purchase options are extremely popular. Financing over 10 and 15 year life of the apparatus is popular. We're very fortunate in Brentwood that some very conservative yet wise individuals have set aside a fund called the Equipment Replacement Fund. And what we do is on an annual basis, whether we purchase anything or not, we haven't purchased a fire apparatus, I think, in 3 years, but we continue to pay into this fund out of our annual budget. And that fund continues to build. And then when it's time to purchase something large like that, that cash is sitting there and available. So Brentwood has always, whether it's police cars, some technology equipment, or our fire apparatus, some public works equipment, we purchase out of that Equipment Replacement Fund. And there are many advantages by paying cash. We get significant discounts up front by being able to do that. So it's nice not to have to wonder if you're going to have to take out a bond or if you're going to have to do a lease purchase or something like that, because you know that that money is there. And it sure helps planning from a budget perspective for me, knowing that the amount that you're putting in on an annual basis isn't going to change significantly from year to year.
Well, go ahead, Norris. Last question.
How many actual home fires are there a year, and what are the major causes?
Major causes are consistent year to year. It's always cooking fires, and that stays. Smoking fires used to be in the top 3. Now they're like number 8. I think just because not as many people smoke anymore, but definitely cooking and kitchen fires. And what you'll find nationwide, which is really pretty true for us, is only about 3% of your total call volume are fires. And so 97% of the calls that we go on are of other types, 75% of those being medical and EMS calls. So really significant major structure fires, maybe 3 a year. Room and contents fires, cooking fires, those things, maybe another dozen. But Brentwood is fortunate. Most of our houses have automatic alarms, so there's early detection. Most of our homes are newer. The city I come from, we had entire neighborhoods that were turn of the century, knob and tube wiring and all the old technology. See, Jeff, we run lots of calls. You hearing that one there?
Tell me when I can stop hitting that button, Brian.
Oh, it's the microwave. Your pizza's ready.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian, for being our speaker today. And thank you, Jeff, for probably one of the best Zoom introductions that I've ever witnessed. And just so you know, if we need to start fundraising for a separation anxiety fund when the two of you are in separate spaces, let us know. We'll start working on that.
Hey, it's all in good fun. We can talk about each other, but we won't let anybody else talk about us.
That's right. That's right.
I want to know who made his flashcards because they were all spelled right.
Must have been a fireman.
That's awesome. I ask that please everyone remember the police department and Officer Legaza's wife Heather during this time as well. And thank you for the opportunity that this club is giving me to fill in for Keely. And if there's no other business for the good of Rotary, we're adjourned.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
See y'all.